about a film shot in 1994. The film is entitled The Mask. It stars Jim Carrey and Cameron Diaz. Mild-mannered bank employee Stanley Ipkiss, played by Jim Carrey, is down on his luck. He feels he's not confident with women. He feels he's not confident in dealing with his boss. He can't even enter a nightclub without getting kicked out. He can't even keep a good car. In the process of borrowing a very low-end car, it makes things look even worse for him. Then one night on his way home, it breaks down on a bridge. Just when he thinks his life can't get any worse, he walks away from the car on one side of the bridge and looks down upon the river. He thinks he sees a man who's drowning or has died in the river, and in a heroic attempt runs down to try to save him, only to find out that it's just a big pile of garbage. Disappointed that his actions got him all wet for nothing, he throws the pile of garbage to the side. In the process of doing so, he finds an old wooden mask. He looks behind it and sees a strange glow inside. He slowly starts to try to put it on when the cops shine a light down on it from over the bridge, finding his old abandoned car, and ask what he's doing. He explains to him he found his mask. All soaked and exhausted, Stanley arrives home. He's greeted by his dog Milo the minute he walks in the front door. He walks in, sets the mask down on a table, and puts on an old Tex Avery cartoon. His dog Milo jumps up on a chair next to the table and starts sniffing at the old mask. Stanley looks over at him and asks what's wrong. He turns off the TV, gets up, walks over, picks up the mask, and then looks in the mirror and starts fooling around with it. And then when he starts to try to put it on, something really strange happens. When he slowly starts to put it on, he feels a strange, strong suction between the mask and his face. He quickly pulls it away, looks down at it, and sees that strange glow again that he saw when he first got it when he was in the river. Without even thinking about what could happen, he slowly starts pulling the mask towards his face, closer and closer. The suction happens again, only this time he can't get it off. The mask starts to slowly change forms and starts to mold to his face. There's nothing he can do to stop it. And then, without warning, he starts spinning around, erratically out of control, all across the room. When he finally stops spinning, he takes on a completely different appearance. Almost as if the mask has some kind of mind of its own. It brings his innermost desires to life, and gives him more energy than he never dreamed of, and powers beyond his wildest imagination. With his new appearance, he leaves his apartment and encounters a number of different people. He encounters his landlord. He jumps out the window and encounters a guy in the road in a car. He even comes across a group of thugs, but he's not worried. With his powers, there's nothing they can do to hurt him. He starts to think there's no limit to what he can do, and then decides to become a superhero. But then wakes up the next morning and thinks it's a dream. All of a sudden he gets a knock on his door. It's the chief of police. He explains to Stanley that a prowler broke in the night before and had attacked the landlady. Stanley walks out and peeks into the hallway and sees the landlady explaining to the policeman that the prowler had made a big hole in the floor and then jumped out the window. Stanley all of a sudden realized it was no dream. It really happened. A little later in the film, Stanley proceeds to transform into this powerful figure again. He introduces himself to a whole new crowd of people. His antics around town eventually land him on the front page of the newspapers, and they called him The Mask. And now for questions and theories. Due to the fact that there are spoilers in the rest of this video, I ask those who have not seen The Mask to turn this video off right now, go find the film, watch it, and then watch the rest of this later. Question: how many people have worn the mask before Stanley did? The mask is hundreds, possibly even thousands of years old. Maybe hundreds of people worn it before Stanley got to it. Or maybe Stanley's the first person who ever got to it. Who knows? The mask doesn't speak for itself. Question: if the scuba man in the opening of the film, who originally was the person who would have found the mask, hadn't have died by that giant tube, would he have become the character The Mask? More importantly, if he'd found it instead of Stanley, what would have happened to Stanley and all the other characters in the film without the character The Mask? Well, at least Stanley's character, The Mask. Question: is the mask really possessed by the Norse night god Loki, son of Odin and brother of Thor? Or is the mask just a creation of Loki's that he filled with immense power to extend his reign of mischief? Or is the mask something else entirely? Question: would all the key elements of the film have been the same if it had been made into a horror film like the directors had originally intended? Meaning, would Stanley Ipkiss still work at the bank? Would he still be shy around women? Would he still like cartoons the way he does? How different would it really be? Question. The film had stated that Stanley could become the Mask at nighttime because Loki was a Norse night god. In the cartoon show of The Mask, he'd become the Mask during the daytime in several episodes. Which is it? Probably the nighttime rule, because it was stated in the film, and the film came before the cartoon show. The cartoon show probably did it just to break a few rules, to make it more convenient. Personally, I'd prefer if it was daytime and nighttime. It'd be much more convenient for him to become the Mask and save the day 24/7. Question. What became of the character Tina Carlisle on the Mask cartoon? Every other character was in the cartoon from the movie except Tina. Stanley, of course, was there. His dog Milo was there. Peggy was there. Charlie was there. But Tina wasn't. Didn't Stanley and Tina get together at the end of the movie? Maybe the people who did the cartoon couldn't find any place for her in any of the storylines. Maybe they found it was better if Stanley was single. Peggy was in it, but she wasn't really a girlfriend figure. She was more like a sidekick kind of figure. They probably couldn't make a very good plot out of it if Stanley had a girlfriend. Question. Were there other wooden masks out there like Stanley's? Would they have been in different colors and had different shapes to them? And what kind of effects would they have had on the wearer? Would they have brought out their innermost desires like the one Stanley had? Or would they have a completely different effect? Question. In the second film, Son of the Mask, how come someone else had the mask? How come Stanley didn't have it anymore? Did he lose it? Did he get rid of it? Did someone take it from him? Maybe this was a result of him throwing it in the river at the end of the first one. But didn't Milo swim back with it and give it to him when no one was looking? That explains how the Mask cartoon was able to be. He still had it in the cartoon. Maybe the Son of the Mask takes place after the Mask cartoon. Maybe by that point Stanley finally got rid of it and passed it on. Maybe to let somebody else become the hero. This has been Second Look. I hope this information has been insightful. Please stay tuned for the next Second Look. Thanks for watching. I'm MJ Kelly.